Poll has some very interesting findings regarding presidential candidates' favorability ratings with Latinos. A California labor bill is very good news for Uber and Lyft drivers, and Wall Street shudders when it hears one presidential candidate's name.
Team Rising is here to take on the hot topics. Colin Rogero is a Democratic strategist, and Lauren Claffey is a managing director at the Hamilton Place Strategies. Previously served as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Securities. Welcome to you both.
How's it going, guys?
Thank you.
Great. How are you? Maybe one of the most stylish panels
Very stylish.
we've ever had here. I just wanted to
You set
take
the bar
note of
high.
that
You
for
set
the
the bar
record.
high.
That's
I would
right.
say I don't think anybody's coming close to this jacket.
TV news shows, you all set the bar high.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the inspiration.
So we've got some pretty interesting new polling. This new Univision poll of national on Latino voters. They generally say they're going to support Joe Biden in a Democratic primary. But Sanders, she's at 22%. Bernie Sanders, very close behind, 20%. Castro at 12%. Warren at 11%. Harris at 8%. Now, Colin, I'm looking at those numbers. It's a big problem for Elizabeth Warren and for Kamala Harris. What do you think is going to be their main appeal to Latino voters going into this race?
I think the reality of it is they haven't had a lot of conversation with Latinos yet. If you look at Joe Biden's the only person that had a Spanish language announcement video. Nobody else did.
True.
And I think his outreach has been fairly consistent there. He built a team of Latinos.
And name ID.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
The name ID exists. Bernie has a good name ID from the last election cycle, and he's had a constant stream of contact with the Latino community.
Right.
And I think that's why you see both of them really neck and neck and within the margin of error.
Yeah, and then, I mean, other numbers from this poll, similar on favorability. Sanders had the best favorability nationally among Latinos, with Biden close behind. So something they're doing is resonating there.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think, to your point, there's a large number who said that they would just support any Democrat. They hadn't really made any choices on which one. And so I think when you dive into the sort of those crosstabs, you see a much broader picture and a lot of opportunity for a lot of Democratic candidates to kind of solidify some of that.
For me, it's really Elizabeth. Well, the Elizabeth Warren figure is significant because she's polling and trailing so far behind Sanders and behind Biden. She has the same problem with the black community, where she's just like in the single to low double digits. And this is something which overwhelmingly she makes up for in white support, but that's not how you win a Democratic primary. And the real question, Colin, is whenever you have these candidates who are so well tested with the community, why take a chance on Elizabeth Warren? I think it's a big problem for her.
Look, I think the reality of it is, again, she hasn't done enough outreach there. And if she ends up winning Iowa, which some people are predicting she may, then you're going to have a momentum factor. And they will understand who she is and have a better idea of what her policy platforms are. And in reality, they're very close to Bernie. And Bernie's appeal with Latinos has always been his policies.
Yes.
Right? His policies are very popular with especially younger Latino voters. So I think she's got a lot of room to make up, and she will if she starts to gain some momentum.
Okay, Lauren, the other tantalizing part of this poll I have to talk about is they did the hypothetical general election matchups against Donald Trump. And it cracks me up that the candidate who did the best in Texas, where they're supposed to hate socialism, like, from an early age, Bernie Sanders beaten Trump in Texas by 6 points. It's early, et cetera, et cetera. But the fact that this is even a possibility is just like completely mind-blowing for people.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the type of people that they were polling in this.
Right.
It's young Latino voters.
But this is a general election, electorate. This wasn't just young Latino voters that they were polling.
But they oversampled for Latino voters in this specific poll because they were looking for that. I'm not calling it fake news. I think that just
Impression poll.
Yeah, I just think that like all polling, it has to be taken in aggregate.
Reading the president's Twitter feed this morning. What do you think, Colin?
Look, I think it's not at all that surprising. Bernie Sanders has maintained popularity with young Latinos, and he's going to continue to do that. And I would be very surprised if in the Democratic primary they don't make a big play in Texas. If I was them, I would. Now, it's a big state, it's very expensive, but if you can run up the score there in terms of delegate count, which he may be able to, put you in a really good position come the convention.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Obama and Hillary having the same slugfest in Texas at the time because I think we were the only state that had both primary and caucus, which caused quite a bit of confusion.
Yeah.
And no, there was a big fight between Obama and Hillary because you're right. Big delegate count. I mean, broadly, it's always just important to talk about Texas. That's where I'm from. There's a caricature of it here that, it's like, the Reagan consensus cowboy. It's an it's an urban suburban state, huge economic driver in the country, and a lot of people are moving there, which is significantly changing the demographics on top of the Latino community. So I think it is one of those things, Lauren, where, I mean, if you're a Republican, you have to start thinking a little bit differently about Texas. The leaders at the top right now don't really represent what it could be in 20 years.
Well, and the Republican congressmen are dropping like flies.
Yeah, as I'll say, I actually see more opportunity for Democrats in the down ballot, some of those local races. But, and I'm from Georgia, and you're seeing the same thing in Georgia, where there's a large influx of people coming in from outside the state.
Right.
And you see that in the suburban communities around Atlanta, where there is a huge shift in the power of independent voters and the ability for Democrats to pick up seats that are traditionally red. You see the same thing playing out in Texas, so I think that you can use both of those states as kind of comparisons, which is why everybody's always talking about Georgia being purple, not this election, probably next election. So I think you see sort of the same thing. Texas is trending. Whether we see that in Donald Trump not winning Texas in 2020, I don't know.
Right.
I think that's probably a stretch, but I think it's reasonable to expect gains.
Well, I think he won by 9. Right, in the last election.
I think that's right. It was somewhere in that ballpark. I mean, but there's some other numbers here. 80% of registered Latino voters nationally disapprove of Trump's job performance. Colin, do you think that he's going to perform? Because he outperformed, actually, Mitt Romney with Latinos, which is kind of shocking given some of his rhetoric. Do you think that he is going to improve on that performance? Do you think it'll stay the same? Do you think it'll fall off?
No, I absolutely think it's going to fall off.
Yeah.
His rhetoric has done nothing but increase, and I think there have been some kind of line in the sand issues that have really kind of moved the Latino community away from him. The children in cages, that was a big story for many, many months, caused him a lot of trouble across all demographic groups in the Latino community. And I think he's got a couple of those things that he's really got to deal with. There has been no real solution on immigration or press towards one, and all these things that are pressing with the Latino community. He is buoyed by the economy. A lot of Latinos are entrepreneurs, and when the economy is doing well, Latinos feel very good about whoever is in office. So he has some wind at his sails, but I think generally the the social programs and his commentary has really put a hurt.
Well, that's the main thing, right, Lauren? Which is he's given us all of the rhetoric which satisfies immigration restrictionists, but not. I mean, on the policy level, like migrant arrivals are down by X% or whatever. There has not been a fundamental or large comprehensive immigration bill. Nothing has happened in terms of actual policy that's passed through the Congress, and now we all know nothing has happened, and that's a problem for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think you see why President Trump is ramping up a lot of his rhetoric on the border wall lately. You've seen a lot of we're building the wall, we're doing this, which
taking the money from wherever they can.
Yeah, like shifting funds.
Great, but it's been 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. And exactly. I mean, you can see that he is now struggling. They're going through the list of campaign promises that they made in 2016. It's kind of like, the original Steve Bannon, his whiteboard. And they're going through and they're going, okay, we didn't do anything on this. We need to start talking about it and making moves here. We didn't do anything on this. The problem with immigration reform, and I've said this so many times, is that you cannot do comprehensive immigration reform from the executive branch.
Yes.
He has got to have Congress on this. And there has been no real strategy for getting a divided chamber, the House and the Senate.
It as an issue.
Or even if we had unified Congress.
He likes it as an issue. He likes
even
to
when
talk
we had
about
unified,
it. He likes to inflame on it. He doesn't want to solve the problem. He wants to fearmonger.
No, I think he did want to solve the problem. Go ahead.
Aren't we all forgetting that Jared had a big plan for this?
Excellent place to stop.
I wrote
We're going to be right back. We got more with Team Rising just after this.